Hey there, darling. Welcome back to Roots and Refuge Farm. I am finishing my mid-morning tea and about to get started on a couple of things out here. I've got a package here that... Alright. So I have my little Greenstock, I don't think you can see it, that is on the front porch of my greenhouse. And these are plant supports for it. Aww. How cute. Little stickers. I like that one. Fireflies in a mason jar. It's my childhood right there. Alright, so first I have some dragon tongue bush bean seeds. Fell over. Here's what they look like, the beans. But I'll put up on the screen what they look like when they grow. They're really neat looking. I'm going to put 2 seeds in each of these bottom tiers on here. When I plant these pockets, I just put one on this side, one on that side. Beans, like, you can grow bean plants like 4 inches apart if you're sowing them in a raised bed. Beans are something that you can grow a pretty good bit of in containers, especially for fresh eating. If you're just trying to harvest a handful of beans for a few people as a side for dinner. So this is my Greenstock that I am growing with a lot of variety, kind of just to show you guys what you can do. Dragon tongue bush beans always make me think of my mother-in-law. She was my garden friend. She passed away in 2018, and it was a very sad loss for so many reasons, but I miss her a lot in the garden, and she loved dragon tongue bush beans. She thought they were the coolest thing, so I always have to plant some, thinking about her. Alright, so this is what I got. And I wanted to get both of these. I've actually never used Greenstock supports because primarily what I have grown in Greenstock, since I do have so much garden space, is strawberries and salad greens. Those 2 things particularly I love a Greenstock for, because those are 2 things that it's hard to keep clean and bug-free growing in the ground. And of course, like, I've got a lot of strawberries in the ground now, and a lot of them turn out good, but a lot of them get eaten by bugs or rot. The ones in the Greenstock, that's really not nearly as much of an issue. But this year, you guys asked me to do this. My mom grows tons of stuff in Greenstocks, and she's rigged up a lot of plant supports. You can do that, but I wanted to try what they had pre-made, and they have a couple of systems. I figured we would get these and take a look at them, because I'm sure if you're trying to grow a lot of stuff in Greenstocks, you probably have need of something like this. First, I do want to remind you guys, today is May 1st, or the day that you'll be seeing this video. And May 1st starts Greenstock's biggest sale of the year. They call it their Mother's Day sale, and it runs at the beginning of May every year. It's their lowest price of the year on the original planter, which is what I primarily use. It's the deeper one. And you can stack my coupon code ROOTS10 to get an additional discount, which again makes it the lowest price of the year. I'll put a link to that down below. If you've been on the fence about getting a Greenstock, it's a great time to get one. And if you are still on the fence and you just want some more information, I've done very extensive review videos of Greenstock. I've been growing with them since about 2018. I think I got my first one. My mom still has that Greenstock. I gave it to her when we moved multiple states away, and it's still in excellent condition. They're made in the United States, of food grade plastic, family run business. All around, I speak very highly of them. I've had a very positive experience with them in every way. So I'll put a link to like my extensive review video, and I'll put a link to the website where you can see the sale. So this is what I think I'm actually going to end up using. They call these trellises, and I don't know, I may use some of both, because I think these would be really beneficial to support those beans that I just planted. So the way this works, let me find the one that's really, these are tumbling tomatoes. So I got these anticipating for them to kind of fall over, but I don't want the pressure of the weight to be too much kind of over the edge of the container where it might break the main stem. So I want to give it just a little bit of support, and I think these trellises will be nice. That in, I can just lay this over, and that'll also be nice for airflow. I also have this, which they call their plant support system, and it goes all the way around the tier, which I wasn't really thinking about support when I planted this. Go figure. I forgot to think it through. Alright, so these little things just clip on in between the cups. So this is what the plant support system looks like, which I think that there are quite a lot of things that you could plant that this would be beneficial for, even like stuff coming up from the bottom tier. I think with the type of tomatoes I planted, the trellis system is probably going to work a little better for me. Because I planted a lot of tumbling tomatoes, but we'll see. I got enough of both to be able to support the plants and try them out, and I guess I'll give it a shot and see what I feel works best for us, you know, by the end of the season growing in this. And because of the way that it works, like these clip on in between the pockets and these slide down into the pockets, so you could potentially use both also to give a lot of support to all these plants. I just realized as these tomato plants started getting bigger, I was definitely going to need something and wanted to see how the different options they had would work. All right, let's pop here into the garden. Ooh, snacks. Alright, I need to go get some soil. The greenhouse, I still have a lot of planting to do. I'm really hoping I can get this done in the next couple of days. We've got everything amended now and it's ready, and I hope that I have solved. After my tomatoes that I moved out got damaged by roly-polies, I was kind of like hoping to solve that problem before I put even more out. I ended up buying this. It's called Sluggo Plus. Several of you recommended this to me. Of course, I've been trying to just take the like pacifist road of just feeding them potatoes and oranges, and that has helped as long as I keep those out fresh. But then there's the fact that there's obviously a big imbalance from us bringing in so much wood mulch, and then that's what caused the high population of the roly-polies. And then now we took the wood out, and so they're just destroying all the plants. And feeding them is great, but then that also keeps the population really high. So I was hoping it would work, but I decided to come through and do an application of this. This is organic. It's iron phosphate and spinosad. I'll put a link to it. It specifically targets like roly-polies, snails, and slugs. The thing is this was like $32, which if you have a smaller garden, this probably lasts you all season. There's a tiny little bit left in here. I got one application over all these raised garden beds where I was having the issues. One for $32. So it is either it's gonna work or it's not, but I'm not gonna keep spending $32 to put this on my garden. So I was giving it a chance. I have not seen any more damaged tomato plants since I put this out, so I'm gonna go ahead and plant the rest of them out, but I was just sort of waiting. And I would say, based on what I'm experiencing the last couple of days since using this, I do think that it is working, but you have to weigh out the cost and whether it's worth that to you, especially if you have a really large space. That's kind of the way it is with any of the organic amendments or pest controls or anything like that. I like a lot of them, and a lot of the organic pest control, I don't love using anything that I have to really regularly apply. I would prefer to do nothing and keep a healthy ecosystem. Occasionally I need to come down and knock down a population, in the case like with these roly-polies. But I don't use any of that stuff super regularly because it just adds up, especially when you have a big space. Anyway, that's what these are waiting on, and they're getting rather large. Like, that's my tomato plants right now. They look beautiful though. Gosh, after the last couple years of struggling, this is so nice to have. All right, let's get soil. I'm gonna go ahead and water this. You'll like how I'm like, oh, let's just build a happy ecosystem where we all get along until the insects like decapitate my Dr. Witchies, and then I wake up and choose violence. That's like totally accurate. I really do believe building an ecosystem is the best way to garden. I also always like to say, I really do believe in good, better, best. Even if a person is gardening at home, but very conventionally, using lots of like conventional pest control or fertilizers, I still think that's worlds better than being fully dependent on the grocery store. And when it comes to organic gardening, I think that sometimes part of creating a balanced ecosystem is recognizing when there's imbalance and trying to figure out how best to solve it. And I really like sharing my thought process over the course of weeks, recognizing a problem, trying different solutions, because I think it gives a much more realistic idea of what gardening actually looks like. So often you may be looking for a solution to an issue, and it may take you a little while to get to the bottom of something. And then once you find the solution, it's going to feel really obvious, and you're like, man, how did I not see that? Such as gardening and life, probably. All right here I have something that I have been waiting on. I have been so excited about. These seeds, I think I showed this in a vlog already, but I've waited to start these until now because I wanted to wait until like absolutely optimum and ideal conditions so I could guarantee that they were going to do as great as possible. So Sunflower Steve breeds sunflowers, and he bred this sunflower to look like the sunflower in my logo. He basically found one of his sunflowers that was growing that looked like mine and isolated it, and he sent me these seeds. And I've been waiting to start these. I want to grow a good bit of them so that I can save seeds from them and continue with my Sunflower Steve Roots and Refuge sunflowers in my garden. But I wanted to wait until I was just absolutely certain that I was going to be able to grow them, move them out at the optimal time, have my beds ready, all of that stuff. So you'll notice this bag. If you are growing a garden and you're wanting to save seeds, a lot of the information that you read is very discouraging, and they'll say things like you need to plant different varieties like a football field away from each other to guarantee that there's no cross-pollination and different things. And it can be very discouraging for a new gardener who's trying to figure out how to space out their plants and how to lay out their garden, considering the idea of saving seeds. Because if you start reading all of the numbers and the information that's out there, you can be like, oh, there's absolutely no way for this to be feasible for me. Now, there is a very easy solution to that, and that is isolating blooms. And that's what Steve did here. He just sent this to me in the bag that he isolated it in. And basically what happened is when this sunflower bloomed, he noticed it. He knew that's what he was looking for me, and he isolated the bloom before the seeds started developing. And basically what that means is that no bees were able to come and visit this sunflower holding the pollen of another flower. And that meant that the pollen in this flower fertilized this flower to produce the seeds. That's what happens when you isolate. Now, some things you can't just put a bag on and leave because they're not self-pollinating. So for instance, like squash has male flowers and female flowers. So in the case of squash, you do need to isolate the bloom. So you need to find the female bloom and either bag it, or commonly with squash people just use a little string and tie it shut. And then when it is at the point of opening, you then go and open it yourself, and you take the male bloom and the pollen from the male bloom and you put it in the female bloom to fertilize it, to pollinate it, and then you tie it shut again so that it is not visited by bees or the wind does not bring any other pollen into it. Now, there are a lot of little details when it comes to seed saving and isolating. For instance, one of the things I'm trying to figure out in my garden right now is I have... Well, dang, I must have dropped the seed pack. It's not in my box. It must be in my house. I have this squash. I think it's called a yoti. It's a green flesh squash. And I really want to grow this. It's noted to have kind of tropical notes when you eat it raw, and then when it's cooked, it's got chocolate notes in the flavor, and it's just really cool looking. And I really want to grow the squash in my garden this year. The thing is that squash is a Cucurbita machata. So there are 3 different types of squash. There's Pepo, Maxima, and machata. And basically, squash will cross-pollinate within their type. So if you've got multiple Pepos growing in the garden next to each other, you would want to isolate the blooms. But they don't typically cross-pollinate outside of their type. So you can grow a Pepo and a machata and a maxima, and you wouldn't have to worry about isolating the blooms, even though you have all 3 of those in the same space. So my beloved Dutch pork pie pumpkins that do so well here, those are the same type as that green squash. And so I'm a little bit concerned about bringing that green squash in, that I'm introducing pollen into my garden that may like hinder me being able to freely save seeds from my Dutch pork pie pumpkins. So the solution to that would be, if I wanted to absolutely guarantee that I had pure seeds from the Dutch pork pie pumpkin, to isolate some blooms, self-pollinate them, and mark them so that I would know which pumpkin essentially to save seeds from. It's like printing money. I mean, it's basically you get your garden next year for free because of saving seeds this year. And there are a lot of things in my garden that I haven't bought seeds for a while. For instance, my chamomile over here is producing lots and lots of flowers, lots of tea for me. Again, I didn't even plant that, it just reseeded. A lot of the things that I've planted this year came from seeds that I saved last year. And not to mention, seeds from your garden are gonna grow better in your garden. They're gonna do better than purchased seeds, just because the plants that they came from had already kind of begun adapting to your environment. You don't have to isolate seeds in order to save them to have food. For a survival situation, you can save whatever seeds you have. The thing is that if I grow both of those pumpkins in my garden and I don't isolate them, and if I grew them especially really close together, where there's a likelihood that a bee is gonna go from one to the other, where there's a likelihood that the pollen is gonna get crossed, what I may end up with is that my Dutch pork pie pumpkins may have a little bit of a green flesh next year, because there would be some crossing that happened. Saving seeds is really to protect the purity of what it is that you're growing and that you want to have continuing to show up in your garden. Just like with this sunflower, my friend Steve wanted to be able to send me seeds that I could then grow those seeds and have sunflowers growing in my garden that looked like my logo. So he isolated the flower that looked like that so that it would pollinate itself and give me that second generation flower. If you have a tomato that you absolutely love, you love the color, the flavor, the way that it grows, you would want to isolate those blooms, which is like a little party bag, you know, the kind of things they put Jordan almonds in whenever you go to a wedding. Just get those. You can buy them on Amazon. I'll put a link to them. I keep those for every garden season. And when your tomato plant sets flowers, all you do is you go slip that bag over the top and tighten it. And when you walk by those flowers, just give that thing a little shake. The pollen that's in those flowers will pollinate those flowers. They'll set fruit and you'll know that it's pure. The same plant that set the flowers pollinated them. Therefore, you have essentially a purebred fruit, and therefore the seeds that are in it are going to produce another generation that looks just like the fruit you got it from. If you don't isolate your seeds and you save the seeds from your absolute favorite tomato, the worst that's going to happen is you're going to end up with a tomato that's half your favorite tomato and half something else. The reason why people don't always want that is, let's say your favorite tomato grows really uniform fruits and it's great for canning, and then it crosses with a cherry tomato. And so if you are going, yeah, I'm growing my favorite canning tomato, and it ends up being a lot smaller, you may be disappointed in what you can do with it. So I really think that like seed isolating and keeping purity away from cross-pollination has a place. But I don't think that it needs to be something that we are essentially paralyzed by in fear of doing it wrong. If you want to save seeds from your garden, do it. If you want to save pure seeds from your garden, do the little extra effort to keep cross-pollination from happening. But all the stuff that says you need to like plant things football fields away and stuff like that, that's considering that you're not going to do any sort of isolation, that you're not going to bag any flowers, that you're not going to be mindful in pollinating. And if you want to keep it super simple, you can do that. You know, for people who grow seeds out for seed sellers, like one of the agreements is if they're, say they're growing a pepper out, that they're going to have a place that they can grow lots and lots and lots of those peppers, and it's supposed to be so far away from other varieties of peppers to absolutely guarantee that all the seeds that get saved from that pepper are going to produce that pepper. That said, if you've been gardening for very long, buying seeds from places, you've probably had an instance where you bought a seed from a seed company and had it come up something other than what it is supposed to be. It doesn't happen a lot if you're buying from reputable companies, but they're just buying their seeds from lots of different growers, so it can happen. Hey Mom. Hey Toby, what's up, brother? Alright, my tray of sunflowers. I'm just gonna leave these out here Water them. Oh, y'all, look at this. Hold on. There we go. Okay. So this last load of soil we got has got a lot of mica in it. See this? Oh, I don't know if this is going to convey on camera. It's really sparkly. Isn't that so cool? Sometimes I'll be watering and it just looks like it's just glittering. It's so pretty. I was noticing all of these peanut shells in this bed and I was like, oh, this must be a squirrel. I don't know where he's getting peanuts. And then it occurred to me, it's actually probably Will. I don't know. I'll have to ask him if he was eating boiled peanuts out here. I just thought that was funny. Anytime we're eating snacks out here, we always throw the extra in the beds because, you know, feeds the soil, feeds the worms. And the way that's spread out, the way it is, it really could be a squirrel. But logically, I don't know where a squirrel would have gotten peanuts rather. I don't have any setting out. So I think more likely it was probably Will. Squirrel or Will, don't know. All right, y'all. My kids are ready for me to move on to the next thing in our day, and I'm starting to water and I'm gonna stop. It's the middle of the day. It's really not the best time for that. I prefer to water in the evenings where it can really soak in overnight and not evaporate. But thank you for hanging out with me today and all the days you do. I bless you. Until next time.